All right, Pastor Mark asked me to teach on roles. Can you see that one? I should probably turn that TV on. Pause. Now let's see if it all breaks. We're good. Okay. Pastor Mark asked me to teach on roles, and when he asked me to teach on roles, I said, okay, well, what does that mean? Like marriage roles? He's like, no, parent roles. I was like, okay, well, isn't it just a parent and a child? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, well, that should be easy. So here's a lesson. Roles, here, parents should be parents, and children should be children. So I'll see you guys after. Got time for donuts? No. Really, this is the thrust of this particular message here is that what we're talking about here with roles is we need to really kind of narrow down and think about what it means that God has assigned us to be parents and our kids to be kids, and what it means to have these specific roles. And I'm grateful that Mark assigned this because I think this is a foundational topic that will help, especially after I'm sure a heavy 2 lessons from Pastor Lucas on like spanking your kids and stuff. I think this is foundational. If you have any hiccups with that lesson, I think this will help kind of clarify why this is so important. So to do that, I do want to do a little bit of defining work here. And I gave you a blank note sheet because I'm kind of jumping in a bunch of different places. So it's not as structured as the other ones, but you can take notes as you see fit. I want to do some defining, okay? So when we talk about roles, what are we talking about? We're talking about a position. This is a title. It's a position. But it also has a connection with a purpose given someone in a situation, organization, society, relationship. Just basic definition here. But when we're talking about roles, we don't use this word too often anymore. But we're just saying, hey, there's a position or a purpose that someone has within a relationship. That's what we're referring to as roles. And it has a little bit more to it than that because it also has this connotation of more than a title. It's not just you're called a parent, it's that there's a set of duties and responsibilities, functions and behaviors that are assigned to the tasks that you are given. All right? So you can't just say, I'm a parent because I have a child and that's the only way I think about it. You have to now define what that looks like in terms of behaviors, function, purpose, roles. So just as a brief illustration of this, if we were to define the role of a doctor, we would say, okay, well, the position and the title is as a doctor, and so we know that, but what is that? That doesn't give us enough information. What does a doctor do? So we need to define the purpose. They practice medicine. They care for the sick. They keep us healthy. There is a purpose assigned to the position, and that is imperative. And that's imperative for us when we think as parents. It's not just sufficient for us to say, okay, we as parents, we're just parents and we just intuitively know what that means. We need to define that purpose. And that's part of what this whole class is about, is that the purpose that we are aiming towards is we want to raise kids up in the Lord. We want to teach them the truth. We want to steward them and lead them to Christ. There's so many purpose statements and clauses that we could put behind our parenting, and that's important when we think about our roles. But there's also a set of functions within those, within our purpose and our position and our title that we need to do. So you can't just say you're a doctor or get a medical license and then just sit there and do nothing. You're not a doctor if you're not functioning as a doctor, which means you're seeing patients, you're performing exams, you're doing all that kind of stuff, okay? This is an example. Now, then you get down to how that looks in terms of specific behaviors. And here's my contention here, is that this is going to vary from time to time. But the position and the purpose and the functions probably don't change. In a given role, especially a role that God has assigned, these functions don't change, but some of the way we go about it change. So just as an example here, we live in South Orange County in a nice area in an affluent community. And so my examples that I'm going to give you are going to be different than if we lived in rural farmland, okay? Because I'd be talking about getting your kids out on the farm and doing the chores and taking care of the chickens. And I'm not going to use those examples here because some things would change in terms of how we execute our functions and our purpose. But the functions and the purpose don't change. So I just want to explain this further because I'm building a case here, and you might not be tracking with me yet, but this is really important, all right? If I say what's the role of a doctor, you might know that intuitively in your head, okay? But there needs to be some clarification given to that, because what if you're thinking in your head a doctor from like the plague era, okay? A doctor from a different era might do a different set of things, but is their purpose any different? Is their position any different? It's not. Even their functions are going to be very similar, but they're going to execute it differently given the time. They're going to put leeches on you and wear this creepy mask, okay? That is going to be somewhat defined by culture, but this goes even further if we say, okay, well, what's the difference between that doctor and this doctor? This is a witch doctor that I pulled up online. I don't know if it's really a witch doctor. Well, now maybe the function and the purpose still stay the same, but the practices are going to vary based off of culture. And I think this is how we tend to think about parenting roles. We tend to say, well, you know what, they change over time, they vary, they're fluid. We parent differently than our previous generation parented, and so we need to change the way we define what God has asked us to do, and so we view our roles as fluid. We say things like, okay, culture influences our roles, society, the standards of the society, or maybe the time period in which we parent, you're going to do things differently than your parents or your grandparents. And because of that, our purpose and our function changes over time. All right? Now, as I already articulated, behaviors can vary. The behaviors can vary in parenting given, I don't know, circumstances, place, location, things like that. But things like purpose and function should not change in terms of a role. They stay the same with a doctor, and though the practices may change, they don't change like these other things may. When we're talking about our roles, we're talking about biblical roles. They are not defined by culture. They're defined by God. He says, you know what, this is what a parent is, and I'm going to communicate that clearly through Scripture, that this is what you are to do. And so this is timeless, and it has a standardized, stable function and purpose. This doesn't change over time. So I'm using this to deal with some objections that might come up in your own mind. You know, we can look at things and say discipline and correction and the way that parents dealt with their kids in the past, that was wrong because they just did that based off a cultural thing. Well, I wanted to warn you that that type of thinking can be wrong if we are not starting first with a biblical position of what a parent is supposed to be in a kid's life. And that's what I want to get into today is what is a parent supposed to be? How has God set this up? And how do we function within that, biblically speaking? And then how you work that out in your own house can change a little bit. But these things need to stay fixed. Though the behaviors change a little bit, the purpose is the same. All right. Still, some foundational stuff I want to go over here is this may not seem like a big deal that parents and kids and the roles and the function of how this works is really that much of a nuanced or complicated thing. But I would argue that every role in society currently is being challenged right now. The society and the culture is challenging all biblical roles completely, absolutely, and this is seeping into our parenting, and we don't even know it because there is not a direct assault, I would say, that's identified and clarified against parenting roles, but there are in other areas, and so because these assaults are happening all the time, they're creeping into the way we think about parenting. So let me give you an example using marriage, and I know not everybody here is married, you might be a single parent, but this is a helpful example. We talk about something like the egalitarian movement, okay? The egalitarian movement is a movement that essentially is arguing, this is between husband and wife, that is saying that husbands and wives are equal in value and roles. That's what this whole movement is about. They are trying to claim, and even claim from a biblical perspective, that there is no distinction in roles between a husband and a wife. And so what this is attempting to do is equalize the relationship in terms of how it functions and the purpose of each individual inside of the marriage. So they're trying to make this completely equal. So it's something considered absolute equality. There's no differentiation, no distinction between the husband and the wife. This is what we consider at our church to be an unbiblical view, because we think that the Bible teaches something contrary to this, that there is a distinction between roles. And what is going on right now with the egalitarian movement is that there's this ongoing cultural attack on any authority in our lives. That's what is really going on, okay? So the culture does not like that a husband has authority over his wife. That's what they don't like. And so what are we going to do? We're going to equalize that. We don't like that the government has authority over people. So what are we going to do? We're going to fight against that. We don't like that our bosses have authority over us. Authority is something in our society that is spurned and looked down upon and seen as negative and something to be escaped from instead of living underneath. And this is just a little microcosm of an attack when we're talking about roles between husband and wife that is going to seep into parenting as well. So just so we're clear, the biblical position on roles of husband and wife is very, very clear. The husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. Sorry, what did I do it? Oh, I failed. Back? Nope. Okay, the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. And the way that this works and the way this is defined is what it means to be head is it is the authority. This is the leader. This is the one that God has given responsibility to lead and shepherd and steward the wife in this situation. And the wife's response is to submit to that authority. If you don't see it this way, this is the way that the Bible presents it. So you can balk at it, you can scoff at it, but this is what the Bible says. So we call this position the complementarian position, and this is the position that we hold that is contrary to the egalitarian position, where husbands and wives are equal, and this is just basically how we see this, right? They're equal before God. Your wife stands with you as a co-heir of Christ. There's no differentiation in value in terms of your wife's salvation, her position before God. Equal in value, but distinct in roles. How they function are to be different in that there is an authority and one who is submissive to the authority. If you want to boil it down to the most simple way, that's it. Husband, authority, wife, submissive to the authority. That's how God breaks it down. So there's not absolute equality here. There is a clear distinction in roles. And this is not about marriage, and if you're in a marriage ministry, you'll get more on this, but this is our position clearly from Ephesians chapter 5 and Colossians and other passages, and from the framework of how God designed this, making Adam first and taking Eve from Adam. So this is a biblically rooted position all the way down to creation. Okay. Oh yeah, why? Just so you're clear on the wife's role here, right? Subject to the husband, follower, all of these things that are supposed to happen. Okay. You don't need all that information. Okay. Now, what about parents and children? Okay. Well, again, this is not complicated. This is Colossians 3:20. This is in Matthew. This is in Exodus and the Ten Commandments. This is early on. What are parents and children supposed to do? There is an authority structure set up in the home. That is clear. The parents are in charge, and the kids are to be submissive and obedient to their parents. It's kind of like an assumed thing when you read the Bible. There's not like 50 verses that give definition to this, because in the patriarchal culture that the Bible is written in, this is such an assumed thing that no one even questions this. That this is just the way that it works. So the way that it works in terms of a biblical view is you are the authority in your kids' lives, and your kids are to be obedient and submissive to you in the authority. And if you're to break down the role in terms of real clear, what does that mean? It's just authority and those responsive to authority. Same between head and those that submit, the wife. This is now being placed on the parent and child role. It's the same thing with the government. Governing authorities, what are we supposed to do? Submit to your governing authorities. This is a biblical concept, and we need to be careful when we start to see that get out of whack. So it's easy to affirm, sitting in a room like this, that, oh yeah, I agree that husbands should be leaders and should have the authority, and their wives should submit to their husbands. In practice, we all know that that's harder, okay? So we can sit here at the same time and say, yes, I all know that we should submit to the governing authorities, and we should be responsive and submissive to the governing authorities and the laws and rules, but it's a lot harder when you're late to church and it's only 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and you got to get here because there's good donuts, okay? So it's harder in practice than it is just to say it, and I think that's the case with parenting. It's easy to say you are the authority in your kids' lives, and your children are submissive and responsive to you, but that's a little bit different in terms of function and practice. And so the attacks that we are seeing right now on parenting in terms of roles is, just like the complementarian movement, a move towards equalizing you and your kids. that you and your kids hold the same kind of position of power and authority. And whether that is stated explicitly or it just happens to work out in the function of your parenting, this is all over the place. And if I were to if you guys gave me like the ability to walk around the church and point it out every time I see it in the hallways here, I think you guys would be a little upset at me because I see it all the time, okay? So here's the biblical position. And again, there's not a ton of passages on this because this is an assumed thing, but I love this particular passage that kind of throws this one idea into a list of horrible things that are going to make up the final generation. In the last days, there's going to come times of difficulty, and then it's like, here's a list of things. They're going to be lovers of self, lovers of money, they're going to be proud, arrogant, abusive, and then here it is, disobedient to their parents, right? This is how this is going to work. They're going to be ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God. God has set up these authority structures, and there's multiple places where he talks about in the end times, in the last days, there's going to be those that are essentially rebuking all authority in their life. That's going to be the kind of cultural reality that's going on, and we're going towards that direction, where authority is not accepted at all, it is rejected at every turn. Okay, why is this distinction important? This is the way that it's supposed to function within the relationship between a husband and wife, where the husband is the one who functions as head over the wife. This is not derogatory. This is not to put the wife down. This is not to see her as lesser. This is a structure of authority. It should not be, and it cannot be, that the wife functions as the head over the husband, okay? If this is the way that it's going, then things are going to be out of whack because God has designed this to function in a particular way, and we don't want to get this out of alignment. It's also not the case, we do not want it to be the case, that the wife is equal to her husband in all things. This is also a misalignment of the authority structure that God has put in place. So both of those are wrong. When it comes to children and parents, this is the authority structure as well. Parents are over the children, and we need to be careful that the child does not get in the position of having authority over you in your functional relationship, all right? Nor should it be that the child is equal to the parent in terms of your functional relationship. Now, I think when we think about authority and usurping authority and taking authority and maintaining authority, we tend to think of that first one. We tend to think of parents maybe letting their kids cross the line and start to have a little bit of power and control. And if you're not there in your head thinking how this works, I'm going to get you there because this is happening all the time. But more often than not, I think what's happening is the parents just kind of coming up alongside the kid and they're just kind of equal. They're just kind of equal and, you know, what do you want to do? And how do you want to go about your day? And what do you want to eat? Okay? This is going on all the time to where the parent is not ever really directing or giving any direction to the kid. They're just letting the kid kind of dictate how things are going along with them. It doesn't feel like they're coming over them because they're right alongside of them. Okay, so both of these are not good. We don't want to do that. Okay, here's the thrust of the application of what we're going to talk about. What I want you to do, I'm hoping to make the case here that the way that this should work is that you need to make sure that you have a clear established authority in your home. And so the way I want you to think about this is you need to work as a parent to make this distinction clear. If your kid does not know that you're the authority in the home, then they're going to do everything in their power to get equal with you or above you. And these little suckers, they get in there and they climb and climb and climb, okay? They're good at it. And if you do not set clear parameters to make sure that this is functioning correctly in your home, then you're going to have issues. And I can almost guarantee that. Okay, so the first thing on this point that I want you to think about is don't let your kids usurp your authority, all right? So what does that look like? That looks like don't let your kids make decisions for your family, okay? I'll give you some examples here. If it's a Saturday and you know, you're saying, okay, we're going to have a family day, are you letting your kid wake up in the morning and determine how that day is going to go? Are they running out of their bedroom or jumping out of their crib or running a ruckus in the house to where they are controlling what you're doing? Your time is wandering around, cleaning up after them and doing what they want you to do. They're kind of in control and you're running around. Are they telling you when it's time to eat? Are they telling you what it is that they want to eat? Are they telling you where to go on vacation, right? We give our kids so much input, like into our family decisions that we're making all the time, that what they're doing is they're just kind of being like, you know what? I said I wanted to do this, and look, here we're doing it. They start to feel the rise of like, I kind of have a lot of power here in my family. I am starting to gain a little bit more influence over my parental authority. I feel like I'm the authority, okay? What are they doing with their free time? What are they watching on TV? When do they get to watch TV? All of these things are really small. They're all really small little things, but they make a really big impact if your goal is to make it clear that you're in charge. You're the authority, you're the parent, they're the kids. This needs to be stable from day one all the way to the end. That is the way that this needs to work, that they know you are in charge, okay? So kids don't get to make family decisions. Kids don't get to determine consequences, okay? They don't get to determine for themselves or for their siblings what a consequence is for a bad behavior. I see this all the time where a brother will hit another brother in the face or something, or a sister will, hurt another sister's feelings. That's usually how it goes. The kid will come and say, Mom, Dad, you need to get Susie in trouble because she hit me. Okay, well, I don't care what you think I should do. I don't. I'm going to determine what I'm going to do apart from your input. And there's a way to make that clear while still not acquiescing to your kids. It's really simple to just add phrases into your parenting. Well, it's like, well, I'm going to decide what to do. And you might decide to do exactly what the kid said to do, but you don't just say, okay, or yeah, get over here. You're going to get a spank now. Okay, we're not doing that. I'm in charge. You are not in charge. You don't get to determine your consequences. Okay, I think I should go in timeout. Well, now that you said that, I'm going to send you to go clean up the trash. I don't know. I want you to know that I'm in charge. This is important. It's very, very important. Your kids need to know you're in charge. This one, man, can't say enough about this one. Your kids should not direct your schedules. Now, if you have an infant, I understand that this might be challenging, but I'm not talking about having infants here. Once your kid gets to 1.5 years old, you need to start to make sure you're directing your kid's time allotment. Your kids should not be telling you when it's time to eat, when it's time to sleep, when it's time to play, when it's time to get their energy out, when it's time to go to the park, when it's time to see their friends, when it's time to go to pool. And what does this look like? It looks like a kid coming up to their parents and saying, Daddy, I want to go to the pool. 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 And wears Daddy down? And Daddy says, okay, fine, we're going to go to the pool. Okay? My kid comes up to me and says, Dad, I want to go to the pool. I'll say, okay, we might go to the pool today. I'll let you know if we're going to do that. Comes up later, asks me again, can we go to the pool now? I'm not sure if we're going to go to the pool. I'll let you know. I'm not being mean. I'm just letting her know that she doesn't get to decide when she's going to the pool. It's not a big deal, and she's happy with that. And when I say, okay, Dad's decided it's time to go to the pool, she's like, yay, I love you, Dad. She's not mad. She wants to go right now, but she just wants to go. So my goal is to kind of hold her off and to make sure she understands how this works, okay? This changes as your kids get older, but it needs to be established early, and it needs to be established when they're young. Okay, so kids don't direct your schedules. You really need to think about this. You don't want to acquiesce to your kids' demands. I mean, this is the flustered parent reality, right? You're tired, you haven't slept, one of the kids is sick, and the other kid is pulling on your shirt saying, Daddy, I need a snack, right? Can I have a snack? Can I have a snack? Can I have a snack? We just start to fall into these patterns of acquiescing to our child's demands. Now, what you don't realize is happening is your kid is usurping your authority slowly over time. That is what's happening. And even if you need to give your kid a snack, you just need to make sure your kid knows that you're in charge of why that's happening and when that's happening. And that's not, that those two things don't have to be harsh. It doesn't have to be unloving. It's just like, okay, go sit down. I'll get you a snack when I get a second. I mean, it's simple things like that to make it clear your position over them. Okay? Another thing, kids don't get free reign of anything, right? They do not get free reign of anything because everything is yours, okay? you're in charge. They don't get free reign to the backyard. They don't get free reign to the TV or the remote. They don't get free reign to your house, to your phone, to the iPad. They don't get free reign at bedtime. You do not close your kid and say, it's bedtime, go to bed, close the door, and then it's okay for them to get up and roll around the bedroom and start playing with toys. If you tell them, get in your bed, go to sleep, it's time for them to go to bed and go to sleep. They don't have free reign because the door is closed. They don't have free reign in the backyard because you just say, go and be free. You can give them parameters and set expectations for what they're going to do, but you're in control. If you ever have a fight with your kid over the remote, you're out of whack, okay? Your authority structure is out of whack. They think they're in charge of the TV, and you need to make sure that they know they're not in charge of the TV. If they're pulling the phone away from you when you're trying to grab the phone because you got a phone call coming in and they're watching whatever that Cocomelon show is, you've got a problem because your kids think that they have free reign over something. And anything like that they have, they're just going to grow that and grow that and grow that and grow that. And I lead a ministry full of parents of teenagers, and let me tell you, if this has not been established early and kids think that they have that ability in their life, by the time they get to 13, 14, 15, 16, you are in trouble. This is not small stuff here. If you do not have the ability for your kids at the middle of their elementary years to have them understand this well, then we're already way, way behind. We need the kids to understand how this works, that you can tell them what to do and when to do it, and they don't get free reign of anything. Okay. I can talk about like 1,000 examples of this that I see just around here, of what I see kids doing and what they're doing with their time. And we like this like free range kid idea where the kid just kind of gets to be a kid all the time. That still needs to fit underneath the biblical model of your authority. You don't want this to be taken away. Okay. Kids don't control the emotional atmosphere, right? This is one that comes on subtly, and it happens all the time. This is the kid, doesn't get what they want because you're trying to establish your authority. They're pulling on your shirt. They're asking for a snack. You tell them, no, you can't have a snack. No, we're not going to go do that activity. Nope, not time to go to the park. Then they have a fit or they have an emotional response to you, right? And because of that emotional response, now you cave to their authority and you automatically stop everything you're doing, and now you're focused on them. Now they're in control. So this is when we talk about fits and things like this. What's happening in a fit is that the kid is throwing an emotional outburst most of the time in order to get that control back in the situation. They didn't get what they wanted. How do I get what I want? I cry, I throw a fit. Which is why we say things like, okay, parents, you need to be in control of yourself and you need to think about your response. This is something that needs to happen all the time where your kid's throwing a response and you're just kind of, I don't know, you're like, there they are, throwing a fit or dealing with the fit. But you can't be acquiescing to their fit or their emotional demands. Now, this continues to go on as your kids get older. I have 2 girls, and the emotional things that happen with girls versus boys are different, right? A boy might punch you in the shoulder if he's mad at you. A girl is just going to weep in the corner by herself. And as a dad, I struggle. My wife's like on it, doesn't let that happen. But I'm like, oh, honey, are you okay? Like I struggle. I like see my daughter crying, and I'm like, I need to support and comfort you. But I need to remember if she's emotional about something that was because she didn't get her way, then I can't, right? If something happens at school or if she's having some issue or something's going on in her life, yeah, I can come alongside and comfort. I can be that comforter. But if she's directing how things are going because she didn't get to go to the party because she was sick and now she's moping around the house all day and asking if she can go do something else or if we could play a game or this, and she's just like, oh, I'm so sad. Well, I'm not just going to be like, well, yeah, I'm so sorry you're sad. Let's do whatever you want. That's not the way it should work. So don't let your kids control the emotional atmosphere. Essentially, a way to say this is don't stop everything when your kids have an emotional thing, okay? Just be in control. You're directing them. Hey, I understand what's going on. You're in control. You're emotionally in control. That's how you're responding. Okay, big one. Kids don't get their desires fulfilled. This is a biblical principle that we all need to understand James is very clear where sin comes from. It comes from desires that we have that are inappropriately allocated, right? We are tempted to sin because we have desires, and our desires are not met. And so because our desires are not met, or God has not provided a means of fulfillment for that desire, is what's going on in the book of James there. What you do is it says you covet, and then you seek to fulfill that desire, and so you'll do things like murder and kill. You fight and quarrel to gain what you want, okay? This is in all of us, and it is very rampant in your kids. Part of your parenting of your kids is to, as their authority, you're like the governing, restraining laws in their lives, right? There's a bunch of people out here who would think it would be great to run around, break car windows, throw rocks at people, and kick people in the shins as they walk around, right? People unrestrained in their desires to do what is wrong. And so the government comes in with laws and authority structures and says, here's the boundaries of what you can do and what you can't do, function there. You need to think of your kids the exact same way. What they want to do, their desires, they need to be underneath your authority to be able to learn how to deal with these things. Sometimes we assume that the best way of parenting is to teach them to deny their desires. The only way to do that is for you to train them to do that by being that governing block. Okay, I have more to say. Well, I have more to say on this. Well, I'm going too far. Okay. When you are a parent, you are restricting the desires of your kids, and you're orienting them to fulfill your desires as a parent. When your kid gets older, this is the exact same thing that you want for them with Christ. You want them to deny their desires and to submit to Christ's desires. If you want your kids to learn how to be an obedient follower of Christ, deny themselves and follow after Christ, they better understand how to respond to your authority by denying their desires, by recognizing that authority you've placed over them, okay? Sometimes this is what it feels like. You guys are sitting here, and I feel like this sometimes, like my authority is intact, and it is large, and I am powerful, and no one can stop this. And your kid is every day just with a tiny little chisel, just chiseling at the bottom of this, because when it might be something big, right? You're like, in the big things, I'm good at this, but it's like, it's all this little stuff, this little stuff that happens every day where you're just letting your kids get away with it. And they're just taking the authority. And so that gigantic authority that you feel like is intact looks like this, okay? They have eroded your authority, and when they become teenagers, they're going to walk up to that rock, and they're going to push it right over, and it's going to roll down and crush you, okay? Seriously, this is how it's going to work. So establish this distinction right now and make it clear. Okay, so don't let your kids usurp your authority. Next thing is I want you to be, in terms of establishing your authority and making that authority distinction clear, you need to be both proactive and reactive. Now, I'm reactive is normal, okay? Reactive is the basic way we always respond, okay? Your kid throws a fit, now you're reacting to their thing, right? They are telling you what to do, now you're reacting to what they want to do, and you're responding with some semblance of, I'm in control, I'm in charge. Okay? You need to be reactive. When your kid actively seeks to usurp your authority, that is a reactive response from you. You're going to say, nope, you can't do that, we're going to do what I'm going to say. But you also need to be proactive, okay? You need to be proactive, which means you need to set these boundaries and this framework for your kid before they do something wrong. This is really important that you're in charge. This looks like setting clear rules, boundaries, and expectations for your kids. A lot of parents will get mad because their kid is not doing what their parent wants them to do, but the parent has never clearly communicated what it is that parent wants them to do. And so kids get frustrated, and they feel they can never please their parents because the parents are not setting clear expectations for the child. Okay. So this is like constantly talking about this. In my house, just as a quick example, I don't know. I'm kind of aggressive on this, but I'll just like be driving in the car, and I'm like, you know, your dad's in charge, right? Like, I'll just say it. And my kids will be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I just want to remind you. I was like, so does that mean, like, and I'll like make up a scenario. I was like, so And I'll like think of something that happened like 3 weeks ago that they completely forgot about. And I'm like, so remember that other day when you were really, really wanting to go outside and hoverboard outside in the street in the rain? And Dad told you no? Yeah. And you kept asking? Yeah. Did that look like you were being responsive to your dad? No. Okay. I'm glad you get that. You said you thought I was in charge, but you weren't acting like, oh yeah. I mean, I'm always putting the pieces in place. Like I'm constantly telling them what they can do. Don't leave your kid guessing what is okay. They need to know what your parameters are, okay? So if you have a problem with your kid running around the bedroom at bedtime and not going to bed, are you making that really clear? Hey, this is what I want you to do. When I say it's time for you to go to bed, you're not allowed to leave your bed. You're not allowed to get up and play. You're not allowed to get your toys. The only thing you can get up and do is get up and go to the bathroom. That's it. You need to go to bed. If you're not setting those expectations, then you're going to have problems, okay? If you have problems with your kids taking snacks or whatever it is, whatever they're doing in your home that you don't want them doing, if you're not clearly communicating that in advance, then you're not setting them up for success to be responsive to you and your authority, okay? And that's how it works. All right. Not only do you need to set clear rules and expectations, you need to reward positive responses to your direction. So part of direction, and hopefully Pastor Lucas talked about this to some degree, is you're not always wanting to assert your authority in some demeaning or harsh or aggressive way. You're not always reactive, you're proactive, but you're also rewarding them for positive things that they're doing under your authority. So if you are, at this phase of our parenting, we are communicating to our kids, when you wake up in the morning, you have to make your bed, get dressed, open your blinds, brush your hair, and before you come downstairs, right? And when they do that, we praise them for it. We reward them for it. We tell them that's good. When they don't do that, I tell them, oh, you're downstairs and you look like you got hit by a bus or whatever and your room's a disaster. Go upstairs and do it. And if they sit there and they go, oh yeah, and then they go upstairs and do it, I'm like, that's it. If they look at me and be like, Dad, I don't want, then now all of a sudden I'm responding differently because I'm wanting to make sure, no, those are the rules. I've set the expectations for you of what you should do. And so since we've set the expectations of what you should do, you have the choice now to walk in them or not. This is how it works in anything. This is what God does with us too, right? If you think about how this works with our Heavenly Father and us, God says, here's the rules of how I want this to work, and here's the expectations of how I want you to walk. And you can argue with me all day long if it's fair or unfair or just or unjust, but I'm in charge, and so you should do it. And when it doesn't go well for you, know that's you and not me. It's just the way that God sets up authority structures in life. And so we need to have that same type of perspective with our kids to not feel like we're hurting them or crushing them because of that. We can tell our kids what to do, and when they feel bad because they didn't do it, what a great teaching example to say, that's how Daddy feels sometimes when I sin against God and don't do what I should do, and I get disciplined by God for it. That's just the way that we should think with our parenting, right? So reward positive responses to your direction. Don't just respond to the bad behavior and the stuff that goes on. So that's good. All right. This last one here. Okay, you had a lot of talk on discipline. Here's my 2 cents on discipline. In my house, my kids are very responsive to my wife and I, and they respond quickly. They're fairly obedient. They do what we tell them to do. They're girls. They're easygoing. They're not a bunch of rambunctious boys going crazy, but they're very responsive. We don't have to do harsh discipline very often in our home. Discipline is a simple word in our home oftentimes. It's like, hey, like they responded in a negative way and they forget, and then they see the facial response and the words that I use, and they go do what they're supposed to do. Discipline is very, very simple in our home. It could just be like, hey, you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Go do it. They do it. They respond. It's fine. Except for when there is a direct assault on this authority thing, and it's clear. And as they get older, this is like, they get it now. And I established this when they're young. Mom and Dad come down hard on our kids when they are clearly trying to usurp our authority, and they're being disobedient in a way that's openly rebellious, my response when they are trying to take authority for themselves is way harsher than almost any other form of discipline. And so this happens all the time in our home, where we'll be sitting on the couch watching a movie or something at night, and the movie will be over and the TV gets turned off, and mom says, okay, get up, go upstairs, and go to bed. And herein lies the struggle now for the next few minutes of them being like, whoa, come on, one more, what time is it? Mom, calm, gently, hey, you need to get upstairs and go to bed. I told you to get upstairs and go to bed. She's now making it very clear what she's asking. And then they're like, oh, and they're still saying they're not moving. That is that point where I, as the dad, say, hey, get up now and go upstairs. You are disrespecting your mom. You're not in charge. I do it all the time. I probably 3 times a week I say that phrase. You are not in charge. Go do what your mom said. It is not harsh. It is not mean. They don't feel crushed. They remember, oh yeah, I'm not in charge. That's just what we're constantly having to teach our kids. You're not in charge. You're not in charge. If I can just get you to think one thing here, if you want to write any notes, just write, I'm in charge. They are not. Okay? And they need to know that. Okay? I'm in charge. They are not, and they need to know that. Okay? And that doesn't need to be harsh. It doesn't mean to be aggressive, but sometimes it does. I've already said it a few times, but if you think this is something that can wait until your kids are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, teenagers, you're wrong. Your kid is 1 year old, they need to know you're in charge. Your kid is an infant, they need to know you're in charge. The earlier you do this, the better it will be for you as a parent. The more you will enjoy your life as a parent, this is what you want. Okay, I'm going to fly through the rest of this, and then we'll take just a few minutes. I've got to be out of here at 10:15-ish, so you only get a few times. I'm going to deal with each one of these. Won't this crush my kid? No. But Pastor Doug, I want my kids to like you. They will love you if you discipline them and teach them how to respond to you. Kids flourish underneath structures of authority. They languish without them. If there is no authority, they run rampant. It becomes Lord of the Flies. I've seen it in classrooms. They do not do well. They do not enjoy it. They want the structure. They will love you and like you, but you still need to establish this, okay? Okay, but I want to be the fun parent. I don't want to be the one always giving controls and command. Trust me right now, I'm probably more fun than you, okay? My kids would come in here and say, is your dad fun? And they would say yes. But that doesn't come at the expense of me being the authority in their lives, and they know that. You can be a fun parent, you can enjoy time together, you can laugh and joke and do all the kind of things with maintaining your authority. You might be the person that doesn't like rules and wants to operate as a free spirit, and so you don't want to impose this on your kids. Oh, I'm sorry, God sets up rules for all of us to follow and says that you should walk in them. He says that we have to obey the governing rules and laws and authorities. There's pastors and structure in the church life. There's a husband over a wife, and there are rules in all of this of how this works. So even if you don't like it, this is the reality. You are now just bucking up against that reality. And so if you don't like rules, well, you need to get used to the fact that this is how it works, okay? Maybe you're thinking, well, they're only kids for so long and they have so much they have to do. Maybe we just let them be kids for a little bit. You're just giving them more and more time to get used to usurping your authority and taking authority or coming alongside of you, and it's just going to be harder for you when you decide that it's time, now that they're a little older, to start to establish this reality in their lives. It's just going to be more and more difficult, okay? I'm sorry I have to do this, but I hear this probably 4 times a week. Stop saying this, please. If anything, you need to be more firm with your boys, okay? They need to understand how this works. So, yes, boys are rambunctious. Yes, boys can be wild. Yes, boys have lots of energy. It does not give them the excuse, nor should you be using the excuse that they're like that because they're boys. They need to respond to your authority, and you need to make it clear that you're in charge, even if they're boys, okay? Or you do the personality thing, and you say, this is just how God made them. They're just kind of a little wild, okay? And I've said that too. Like, sometimes my youngest one's a little wild, right? And I'm like, yeah, she's a little wild. It doesn't give her the excuse to not do what I say, and it doesn't let her step over me or come alongside of me thinking she's in charge. And she tries more than the other one. If you've got a kid like this, you know that they will try to do this, but don't use the excuse or the objection like, God just made them a leader. No. He made you the leader, okay? You're responsible, all right? Okay. Last one on here. Letter C here. You need to delegate responsibilities to your kids, not authority your kids. This is talked about in Pastor Mike's book, Raising Men Not Boys, talking about delegating responsibilities. It's a good chapter. You should dive into that one. But there is a difference between delegation of authority and yielding your authority or giving your authority. Okay, so you can delegate responsibilities to your kids, but that's not giving them authority over things. Okay, we're not giving them free reign over anything. You're still in charge. Okay, so as your kids gets older and their job is to make their bed, or their job is to take the dog out, or take care of the cat, or whatever it is, or their job is to take the trash out, right? They're not in control now of the dog, the cat, the house, the trash. They're not the authority in that area of life. You are. God has established you as the authority, and you are now delegating your authority to them. That's how it works, okay? So this is how it works in all authority structures in the Bible. God is in control, and he gives the government authority, and he can take it away. That's how it works. They don't have it inherent in themselves. God gives it to them, and he could take it away, and they're supposed to exercise it within his parameters, or he will take it away. God has given authority to pastors over a church, and it's his authority that he's delegating to pastors, and if we don't operate in it rightly, he could take it away. That's how it works. He has given you authority, and if you do not do this rightly, he can take it away. He can take that authority away. He can make it so that you do not have that voice or that impact in your kids' lives. All right? Your kids you're the one with the authority, and you're delegating to them something that they can do, but that you still maintain that authority, okay? This is Christ's church, not our church, okay? It's God's world, not the government's world. That's how it works, right? So it's your house in your bed, not their bed, okay? You're delegating and you're giving responsibility, but you are not giving them authority. So you don't ever want to yield your authority. Now, don't take this as like, say this all the time, but here's just an example, right? When I feel like my kid is like doing well, and I wake up on a Saturday morning and say, hey, we're going to do a family thing, okay? I have a way of saying this. I can say, hey, we're going to go do something. It's up to you. What do you want to do today? That's a way I can go about it. Or I can say, I'm going to let you choose what we're going to do today. I'm still in control. I'm letting you choose. And I get veto power. So when they say, we want to go to Disneyland, and then after that, go bowling, and then go to the pool. I'm like, nah, that doesn't sound good, okay? Like, I'm still in control. You can phrase this in a way that they still understand that you're in control while still giving them some stuff to handle on their own, okay? This is a simple practice of exercising dominion in your life. They should feel some responsibility in their life. The goal of parenting is not to just control, release. It is to increase their responsibility and the dominion of their own life and their own things that they've got going on as you maintain control. So this is an example. So I'll just put this one up there. Only give what is appropriate and manageable, so you're not giving your kids things that are beyond their ability. And then your goal here is to exercise less and less authority over time. So I like to say it this way. If you're an employer and you get a new employee, what do you tend to do with a new employee? You tend to micromanage a new employee. You tend to tell them everything to do. You're constantly checking in on them. You're setting clear parameters and expectations, and you're giving constant feedback, correction, and direction when they're new employees. But you do not want to be a micromanager of an employee who's been in your company for 15 years and knows exactly what to do and how things operate, and they've been a good, productive employee. The goal of being a boss and having someone is to control in order to see them gain more and more responsibility and be a fruitful, productive employee. The same is true in parenting. Early on, you are giving tons of feedback. I mean, it's just constant, constant, constant correction, direction, all the time, never ending. And the goal is to broaden that up, give them a little more space, a little more autonomy without micromanaging everything they're doing. This is kind of the way that authority has to function in a family. And I've seen parents that take their authority and say, I am in control and my kids can't do anything without my explicit, direct permission when they're 17 years old. And I'm saying, have fun with that, because in 1 year they're going to do whatever they want. Okay? Your parenting should broaden over time as you delegate appropriate responsibilities to them. You're not delegating your authority. You're recognizing that they are becoming capable and responsible for themselves, and so you're going to kind of back off over time. Okay. Here's those 3 points in case you didn't get them. I have a bajillion more examples, and I wish I could give you all of them, but I've got 6 minutes for questions. Sorry. Yes.
Any tips on dealing with a kid who wants to be helpful with the parents and like, oh, Dad, she's doing this, and you told her not to do, and kind of stepping in and trying to be a parent?
Yeah, that's my oldest. My oldest all the time does that. So my response to my kid is, you're the parent, I'm the parent, you are not. I will take care of your sister. I just, and she'll still do it. And sometimes I need her to do it, honestly. But I don't let her know that that's what I want her to do. I just am saying, hey, I'll take care of it. I think the reason why I came up with that example of not providing, their own direction on what should be done is because that's what my kid does with my youngest, is she'll come up and say, well, Emmy just spilled on the carpet. And I'm like, and so I told her, and I'm like, stop telling her what she should do or not do. I'll do that, right? You can come tell me she spilled on the carpet, but stop telling her what to do. You just need to make sure that your kid doesn't get into the position over their other siblings as they're in charge of their siblings in that way, unless they're like the Paces who have Bailey Pace, who's like a teenager, and you can delegate that appropriate responsibility to take care of the little one, right? Like, that's appropriate. But if you've got a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old, it's like the 8-year-old's not in charge of the 7-year-old. I'm so sorry. I just think we can be more clear verbally. And I wish my wife was here, because she's really the one that's taught me this to some degree, of how to clearly communicate this. I mean, my kids love her, and she is such a good mom, and she's so gentle. If you know my wife, she's very kind and very loving. But my wife doesn't take any crap from my kids. Seriously. And she tells them all the time, just to their face, I'm in charge. Like, she says it all the time, just constantly. It's like, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. I'm in charge. I'm in charge. You're not the parent. I am. I'm in charge. God didn't put you in control. He put me in control. This is my house, not yours. I mean, it's just nonstop. And they never feel like crushed or hurt or like despondent because of it, but they have a very clear awareness that this is how it works. So I'll go over to people's houses, and kids will be playing, and my wife will just be like, Allie, Emmy, let's go. And they just get up and go. And I see other parents in the room like, how did you do that? And I'm like, because my wife is going to tear them apart. Like, she's going to look at them, and she's not going to like spank them in the car. She's just going to look at them and say, hey, when I tell you it's time to go because I'm in charge. And they just know that's how it works. And then I'm just such a reinforcer. I mean, she's doing a lot of this on her own, but I'm just such a strong reinforcer of this that I just don't let them get away with. And they try, trust me. And we struggled early in our parenting. We struggled hard early in parenting. I was a really bad discipliner. And I didn't know how to do this because I was never disciplined as a child, so I was learning for the first time how to do this. And I had to take some cues from my wife because my kids were pitting us against each other and not listening to her as the authority because Dad was letting him get away with all this stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you could do this. And I didn't see what was going on at the time, is that it was Dad, kid, mom in terms of the authority structure from like 2 years old to like 2.5. We had like a 6-month period of time with the oldest one where like she had like gotten over mom in terms of the authority, and it became disastrous in our home for 6 months. It was wild. And then we fixed it, and then it was like, oh, we're good. Everything's back to normal. Mom and dad are in the right spot, right? We're at the top and you're underneath us. All right, one more question. Yeah.
When you say you did fix it, like what did you guys do to fix it? So like what if we have a kid that, yeah, we want them to obey us on the first time?
Yeah.
So what like tangible steps would you offer?
You're saying between a disparity between mom and dad or just in general?
Or just in general, if you're not at that point where you can
Yeah.
constantly think that, say when you tell your kid, hey, we're leaving, they get up and be like, okay, mom and dad.
I guess my suggestion is, I mean, parenting is a lot of work, and so I just think that you have to be relentless. Like, I just think that you have to see your job as, I seriously, like, when my kids and I have something like this, I don't know, there's a fire that burns in my soul, and I'm just like, I will win. I will win at all costs, and you will never cross me. Like, I just, and I'm not saying that because I'm like a mean, overpowering person. Like, when they come up against me, I get like a lion. Like, I'm like, you will not get past me. Like, you're not, it's not going to happen. And I just go after it and go after it and go after it until they start doing it. And so I think we're not consistent enough is what the problem is. Or my suggestion, which is what I'm trying to argue here, is that maybe what's going on in a lot of these circumstances is you're letting your kid get away with usurping your authority in all the little areas, and so they're confused. So when you try to give them something big to do, they still think they're in charge, and that's why you're having a conflict. But it's constant all day, every day with the little things where they're telling you what to do, and you're responding to them instead of you telling them what to do, and them responding to you, which is against the biblical picture, and so then you're having problems. And so I actually suggest that parents think about the little things first. The big things fall into place when the little things get taken care of. If they think that you're daily in charge, then when there's a crisis moment, they'll know. It's the same thing. If something big blows up, then if you're dealing with all the little stuff, they know. They just understand what's going on. And some kids are just going to be brutal, and you're going to have to just, until they're like 8, you just every day of your life, just keep going and 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 keep going. And that's okay. I mean, and if they don't respond to you, you just got to keep going. You just can't ever let them win. It's like my parenting philosophy. My child never wins. Yeah.
How do you deal with like kids that can't talk yet and tell you what they like? If you want to give them choices, sometimes I like go through a list of food particularly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you want this, this, this? I'm like, and I'm just trying to find out what she likes, but she can't like directly tell me this is what I want.
I'll tell you right now, as a parent, and if you're going to tell me where have I failed, food. Okay, my kids are picky, and I don't know how to fix it. So. I'm probably not the best one. Pastor Mike would tell you, you shove the food in their mouth and tell them to eat it. I mean, yeah, their kids don't have a choice of what they eat and what they don't eat. But when they're young, I understand that there's some things that change a little bit. But yeah, you just don't let them think that they're in charge. Like at some point, you just have to maintain that. So like, I'll do this with my kids, right? Hey, would you like a hot dog or would you like chicken nuggets? Okay, that's what your options are. And they're like, I don't want either. I'm like, okay, you get taquitos as your third option, right? That's your third option. I'm not going to make them chicken cordon bleu in the kitchen, right? Because that's what they want. And so when they say, I don't want that either, and say, okay, it's one of the three. Which one do you want? And if they still say, oh, I don't want either, okay, well, then you're not going to eat. Those are my options, right? I'm giving you a choice, but I'm giving you choices with parameters. I'm just not going to be always acquiescing to what you want. I'm not going to go to the store because you want tomatoes, okay? I'm just going to, like, here's an onion. No, I'm just giving an onion. Okay, I got to go across the street, and you guys are welcome to come with me. Let me just say one thing just as a capstone to this. If you're reading the DBR with us, the DBR this morning talks about, we were talking about Korah's rebellion, right? I want you to think just briefly here about God's view of those he puts in positions of authority and leadership and positions, and those who usurp that authority and how he feels about that, right? Korah is now leading a rebellion against Moses and Aaron to try to usurp God's given authority over the nation of Israel. And God's desire is to wipe them all out instantaneously. I mean, he is not happy. And they have to intercede for the people to stay God's hand, because God is not like when he establishes authority and people reject that authority in their lives. And so we think that this is some small little thing, like, oh, my kid is just pushing back against me today. God is not pleased when your kids do not recognize your authority, but it has some parameters on you as the leader. I mean, Moses and Aaron have to do what's right here too. They have to stay in this position of leadership. They can't cower. They can't back down. They can't go. They go to God, and they're essentially pleading that God would not just maintain them. They know they're in the position of power, and they're sticking to it. He's saying, don't mess with my kids because they're not getting it. We can't be the other biblical examples where people just relinquish their power. God will judge us for that if we take the fact that God has said you're the authority in your kids' lives and you're just giving it up. You don't want to be in that position. And you don't want your kids to be in the position where they're fighting and rebelling against you, because God is opposed to that. He's opposed to that. And he wants their kids to obey their parents, and it will go well with them. That's the idea. Okay, I got to go across the street. Thank you. I'll happy to talk to you later. I'll see you in a few weeks when I do another one. We'll see you later.